Welcome back, everybody, to the Diary of the Landscaper. Today we have Chris, and he's going to talk about his story about having a book and a film. That's correct?
Yes.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name's Chris Freeman. I'm the author of Mommy, I Don't Want to. It's a dark psychological thriller. It's a novel. It's available on audiobook, on Kindle, and also on a physical copy. And it's also an independent feature film that's coming out 2026. It's in post-production now. The first screening will be on the 16th in January in the UK. I'm located in America.
Great. So we're going to start with the question. So before talking about your film and everything, take us back where you were. Where were you in life when the story began?
Okay, so I've been involved in art since I was a young kid. My family, they kind of came from a artistic background. They were dancers and singers and stuff. And so I started writing when I was about like 9 years old, and I was like kind of doing music back then. I would do a lot of music, and so that was my form of writing was in music. And I've also done physical art in the form of martial arts since I was a kid. So since I was a kid, it's been martial arts and writing. After I did my music for a long time, I kind of got tired of doing that. I wanted to reinvent myself. So what I started doing was I started writing articles about martial arts. And that was the first time I actually saw some actual results. Like I had articles published in magazines, and it was a nice because my music went nowhere. So like now I'm seeing like some results. So I did that for a while. And then I had this idea that I wanted to write a story. And I knew that I wanted it to take place in the 70s, in the 1970s, because I like that culture. It was a very wild time period, and I wanted to make a wild story. So I had this idea, like I wanted to have this character he's a bad guy, and he's a tragic bad guy, but you don't hate him for some reason. I would compare it to, in a sense, to the movie Clockwork Orange and Alex, where he's a horrible guy, he does horrible things, but for some reason or other, you just don't hate him. So I wanted to have this character that's in the 70s. He does horrible things, but somehow or other, you just don't hate him. So I had that seed already planted it was about 2 decades ago, maybe, when I first came up with the idea that I wanted to make this type of story.
Okay, now the next question will be, you wrote, Mommy, I don't want to, while living in a sonata, I might say it wrong, in the village of the Ceylon temple?
Yes, the
Why
Shaolin.
there and why there?
Okay, so because of my martial art background, since I was a young kid, I always wanted to go to China. Since I was about 9 years old, I saw a Bruce Lee movie, and I became really fanatical about Asian culture. So I always wanted to do this. So I was studying with a teacher in New York City, and he started taking trips every year to China. At the end of the year, they would take a 2-year trip. So he asked me if I wanted to go, and I was making very little money. I was living renting a little cheap room in a bad neighborhood, and I said, let me think about it. I thought about it, and I said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna do this. So I had the whole year to save up money. So I saved up money. At the end of the year, I took a 2-week trip it was Beijing at first. I went to Beijing to do martial arts for 2 years, and I fell in love with the culture. And I met a girl there, and I said, like, I would really love to come and live here. And what could I do? And she's like, you could teach English, So she planted that seed in my head. So then I went back to America. I was living in Jersey City at the time. I went back to Jersey City, and I saved up some money. I took a course on how to teach English as a foreign language. And then about 6 months later, I moved down there. And because I had this connection, this girl who spoke some English, like I wasn't totally alone, and I wasn't like in a foreign country with no help. And then that just led to eventually moving to. It didn't work out between the two of us, but eventually I met my wife in China. Eventually, I met my wife in China, and I lived in a city called Shenzhen. It's near Hong Kong, actually. And then we moved to Songshan, Shaolin, because of the training, the martial art training. I met a teacher. He said, come move down here. My wife and I moved down there. And when I moved down there, when I was living in Shenzhen, I found the story that I wanted to write. It was based on a true crime story. So I heard that story and said, this will be the basis for my movie. So then in Shenzhen, I had this idea. And then when I moved to Shaolin, the village outside the Shaolin temple called Songshan Shaolin, that's when I had the free time and the inspiration to write the actual story.
Okay, so the next question, I was on My son is looking for the remote control. What, where were you searching for or running from, or what was it at that point of your life?
Okay, so I would say the creative spark in me had never gone away. Like I started with music and I didn't really nothing really materialized from my music. I still felt like I had a creative side to me. So I started writing the articles and the articles were nice, but they weren't creative so much because they were just basically me explaining some kind of training or some cultural aspects. So I still had like a desire to write something more creative. So I switched from the articles to the idea of writing a novel at first. So it was basically to get that creative desire out of me because it was there, and if I didn't use it, it would make me feel like I wasn't really being who I am. So it was more like an expression of myself, soul, and who I am, and what I feel like I have to offer to people in the form of some kind of entertainment.
What was the daily life living near the Silent Temple or over there in China?
Okay, so that area, it's in a city called Dongfeng City, and it's in Henan province, and it's a village outside the city, and it's the birthplace of the Shaolin Temple, which is 1,500 years old. It's the birthplace of martial arts, or all Asian martial arts, and it goes back 1,500 years, and it's still there to this day. Nowadays, it's become a big tourist attraction. So lots of tourists go there all over China, and some foreigners go there. So that's one aspect of it. But we were in the village a little bit about 15 minutes away from the Shaolin Temple, and there's lots of martial arts schools everywhere. And my teacher had a school in the village. So the life there is really, really simple. Like there's nothing like it in America. There's nothing to compare it to. Like in the wintertime, they don't use heat because
Okay.
it's expensive, so they don't use heat. So that's one thing. So like
Okay.
yeah, and then washing your clothes. There was like a washing machine outside. It has a wash and a spin cycle, but no dryer. So you have to pull it up with a hose and then rinse it, and then let the water go out, and then do it again, then put it in the dryer, let it rinse, and hang it up. This is all in the freezing winter or in the summer. And then like our pipes would freeze. We'd have no water for like 2 days. We had drinking water, but we didn't have like shower water. Like it was so many things like that. It's really, really rough. But the thing is, though, it's beautiful. Like the surrounding mountains are beautiful, and the culture is beautiful. I'm a guy who's into that culture and the martial arts, so being there was really cool and also very inspiring.
I imagine that, yeah, there being outside all this war that we had here in America, and then over there is very, very more nature team and enjoying the landscape and all that thing. And outside the technology should be, yeah, a whole different story, yeah, for sure. So let's talk to the next question. How do that environment shape your mindset as a writer?
Okay, that was the absolute, like for me, that was the 100% best place and environment to write a novel. Like there couldn't have been a better place on earth to write a novel for me because I've been doing martial arts since I was 11, and I've been thinking about it since I was 9. So and I'm going to be 55 in a month and a half. I'll be 55. So I've been doing this for decades. So it couldn't have been a better place because for one reason, like all the time I lived in China, I was teaching English, but Songshan Shaolin is like kind of like a poor village, and they don't have money for English classes there. So what happened was my wife, who's Chinese, she was teaching my teacher, my shifu, my teacher's kids. They're like kids. They're full-time kung fu kids. She was teaching them at first. She was teaching them English, Chinese, and math. But then she got a really good job. She got a tour guide job, and she became a tour guide for UK foreigners who came to Shaolin to explore. So that was a really, really, it was just amazing. Everything fell into place just perfect. We had a hotel that we didn't pay for. Classes were free. Everything worked out just amazing. So I have all this free time. I'm in a place that's all about martial arts and beautiful mountains and culture and all these things. And I have all the time in the world to do this. So it was the absolute ideal situation for me as a writer, to do that.
Yeah, it's a great, all away from the noise, from the clutter. I imagine, yeah. And then, so the discipline in that area and the philosophy, how did that discipline show up your creative process?
Well, I gotta be honest. I mean, like right now, if I was to write, I'm still working on a project now. It's kind of finished, but it's not the same writing it here and now. Like I besides my writing, I teach martial arts. I also have a job, so like it's a lot harder for me to get inspired right now. Like,
You're you're super busy.
yeah, when I was in the mountains of the Shaolin Temple, surrounded by like living this simple life, and it was just amazing. So it was a bit easier, but at the same time, it did take a lot of dedication and discipline. And for me, it was a regimen of every day I would spend about before lunch. I would wake up, I'd eat breakfast, I would write for like 3 hours, and it did take a lot of discipline. And I feel like all the goals that I've set in my life, even if they don't make money, even if I'm living poor, but I still can say I've done a lot of my goals and a lot of my dreams. They all take a whole lot of discipline, and that's my key to success. In my having achieved my goals that I set out for is the discipline. Like, people talk so much. They're going to do this, they're going to do that. They don't do anything, especially with the movie stuff. I met so many people like that. They're going to do this, they want to do that, and they're just not willing to put in the blood, sweat, and tears it takes to make it happen. And that is the key. My secret is my martial art discipline, that I've learned to never give up, keep trying. And people only see the good aspect. They only see the good part of it. They see the results, but they don't see all the hard work and the disappointment that comes with it. Like, they don't see that part. They just see the cool part. And I think
Yeah,
people.
I guess that's one of the big issues as a society that we have. We tend to just focus on the success, but not the behind the story, and that's why a lot of people just drag out of being disciplined, because they just want the success like this, like, oh, it's gonna happen from night to morning, and it's not. I'm pretty sure we all know that, but we tend to forget about that. So, there were moments where you wanted to quit doing the story?
Yeah, when I wrote this novel, I had no idea how to write a novel. And what happened, I had a lot of experience writing articles, which were really short and on a specific topic. And there was no like narration and how to describe the scenery and what tense is going to be, like, present tense, what person who's telling the story. So it was totally, totally different than what I was used to doing. So what I did was I just started, like, I had a VPN so I could get on YouTube and stuff. Like, in China they have that block, but if you get a VPN, you can open it. So I had a VPN so I could open YouTube and all that. So I just started researching how to write a novel. And it was, at one point, it was so hard. I was thinking getting a ghostwriter, having someone like do it for me. But I just kept going, pushing through, and eventually I figured it out. And once I got it, it flowed. It was like, because I would say I'm a good writer, so like once I got the style and the technique, it flowed. And also there was just so much inspiration there. And I took from all these different stories, like other stories in the 70s and movies and music and culture of that time period. I threw it all into the story. So, like, it was a combination of, dedication, inspiration, hard work, being persistent. So there was a time when I was doubting myself. Can I write a novel? Because it's really challenging. I found it very challenging at first. But then once you get that style down, then it's doable.
Great, great, great to know. So the story is inspired by true events, or how personal was this project to you?
Okay, so I'll let the secret out. For a while, I didn't want to say what story it was inspired by, but it's inspired by a really scary, dangerous person. And when I wrote the story, he still was not known. They didn't catch the guy yet. They caught him right at the end of my book, like at the end. Like, I had like 10% left, and they caught the guy, which was in
Okay.
2018. So what I did was I created a fictional character based on these crimes, and the guy's name, the crime spree was the Golden State Killer. It's kind of well known now. He was just this horrible guy who did a whole bunch of crimes, and he was really good at it, and he got away with it for like 45 years.
Mm-hmm.
What I did was I wanted to turn it into a psychological thriller. I didn't want it to be an action movie or film or book. I didn't want it to be, consistently talking about his crimes. I wanted it to be the mental state, like, why was he doing these crimes? What was behind his thoughts? So I told the story from his perspective. He's telling the story. And it's about like a person who's got some, mental problems, and they're conflicted about why they're doing all these things. So in my life, I had a really difficult childhood. Like, my parents were divorced when I was 5. I grew up with my brother and my father mostly. There's a whole bunch of crazy things in my childhood. So there's some of that disturbedness, like, of my childhood in that story, but obviously none of the crimes or anything like that
Mm-hmm.
participated in. There's one chapter in the book, but it's not in the movie though, because the movie is a little bit, lower budget. Some of these scenes just could not be filmed. So there's a chapter in the book called Sleepaway Camp where he's still a young boy. When he goes to the sleepaway camp and he makes this homemade like spy outfit and he goes sneaking around, and in the book he goes into the girls' cabins and he steals a piece of clothing from the girls' cabins. And then he almost gets caught, and the next day they have this meeting, and the campers and the counselors are there, and they're like, "We know who did this. Come and tell us who you are." And he doesn't say anything because they're just trying to trick him. And in real life, that kind of happened, but not with the girls' cabin. In real life, I did have this little secret homemade ninja outfit, and I snuck around, and I almost got caught. And the next day, they had this big meeting, and they said, "We know who you are. Come forward, and we won't punish you so much." And I didn't say anything, and I never got caught with that. But I never snuck into a girl's cabin, and that was important.
Okay.
That was an actual thing that happened, almost happened in real life.
So that was part of the true story then. What made you feel this story has to be told, not just write it?
I feel like, okay, so I've always felt like this has been going on since I was a kid. Like I have great ideas. I just haven't had an opportunity to get a break, you know? So I have this drive to get my art out there because I believe in myself 150%. Here's an example. Netflix has a series called Monster where they do like mini series about serial killers. And that's kind of what my story is. So the recent one, they did one about this guy, Ed Gein. And now in the first episode of this miniseries, a Netflix miniseries, the first episode, 5 minutes in, they use a Bible verse. That Bible verse is the same verse I used in my novel, which was written 8 years ago. So I used the same Bible verse 8 years ago that they used in this episode, which came out about a month ago, in the first 5 minutes of their first episode. So that's like, okay, so they must have a couple writers working on that. This is Netflix, huge budget. And the first 5 minutes, they use the same exact Bible verse that I used in my novel, which originally came out in 2018. You could see in the reviews, you can see 2018. They'll say my novel came out last year, but that's the second reprinting. I had a company put it out before in 2018. You could see the reviews. It says 2019 reviews. So you'll see that those are like 7, 8 years old already. Yeah, so I mean, Netflix is doing the things that I'm doing, you know, like the same exact Bible verse in my story that they used 8 years later, you know. So like, I believe in myself. The reason the reason I want to put this out is because I want to put out something good, you know. Like I feel like the art world really suffers because like it happened in the 80s with breakdancing and stuff, you know, comes out, it's about the people, it's about the art. And then once money gets involved, it becomes a greed thing. And then they start to put out really bad material. And I just feel like I have good material. I want to try my best in this lifetime to put it out.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely great. At what point do you realize this wasn't just a screenplay or a novel, but something bigger?
Well, when I was writing this in the mountains of Shaolin, I had this idea that it's going to be a movie. I just kept telling myself that. I said, it's going to be a movie. It's going to be a movie. And nothing's going to make me think differently. So like going back to that question about the discipline, I think it's really like about discipline and believing in yourself and just never giving up. So I just believed in it from the beginning, and I just kept telling myself, I don't know how this is going to happen, but it's going to be a movie. Like I just convinced myself that.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Many people write scripts, very few turn into films. What was the turning point?
Okay, so I mean, the director and producer, his name is Asif Pervez. He lives in UK and he also lives in Dubai. He works in Dubai and he lives in UK. So his family's in UK, he lives in Dubai. So since I came back to the US, I've been back in the US for like 7 years now. When I came back, I was trying to make this happen, like for the whole time. So I've known him for maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years now, or a year and a half, 2 years. So all that time for like 5 years, nothing happened. But I had people interested, but they didn't have the capability of making it happen. They wanted to make it happen, but they just didn't have the capability.
Okay.
So when I met him, that's when things started taking off. And, you know, the way I met him it was a combination of my determination, luck, and maybe divine intervention. You know, I think there was like some powers above that let that happen. And also my persistence. I believe this. In my belief, I believe this. Here's a guy he's a director and he wants to make a film but doesn't have a story. Here's a writer who has a really good story but doesn't have the means to make a movie. the powers that be put us together. That's how what I believe happened. The powers that be put us together, and then we made it happen. That's
the law of attraction, my friend. Yes, it is. It is there. There's a law of attraction for sure. What was the biggest challenge moving from writing to production?
So now, I can't say I'm not the producer. Again, Asif Pervez, he has a company called Color Frame Studio. He's the producer, but I worked closely with him. And the way that happened was the first thing we did was we talked about this and we started talking about it. And originally it was going to be a short film, but then he decided he's going to make it a feature film. And it's a 70s piece, so he wanted to change the time period because he said, it would be too difficult and too expensive to make this a 70s piece. I said, no, like this has to be done in the 70s. It can't be done in the 90s or something like that. So he agreed to that. And he said, okay, what we'll do is we'll film it in UK because Dubai is too modern. It won't look like the 70s. But he said, UK has old buildings and stuff, and we could pass that off as the 70s. I said, okay, that's a great idea. So that was the first part. Second part was my original script. I had already had a script now. It wasn't just a novel. I had written a script. The script was 136 pages. It would have been a miniseries, and it would have cost like millions of dollars. So what we had to do was I had to start cutting out scenes. Like, he can't go to New York City in the 70s. We can't have like Vietnam helicopters flying over and, all these crazy things that's going on. So I had to start eliminating scenes, but I really didn't understand how this worked too well. So over like a year and a half, we would do everything online together. We would like say, no, change this, no, change that. And then I said, you got to let me be in charge of the music. Like, let me be in charge of the music because I have a vision for this. So I went and found guys who could do the music, not the sound part, but just the songs,
Yeah, the soundtrack.
I had this whole like 70s songs and stuff. Like I had to have them like done in like a sound alike version. So then, okay, so he gave me also the casting. I had a part in the casting. I said, let me be part of this. Let me decide who plays the lead character's name is Jay. I was like, you got to let me decide who to. He found, anyway. So he did an amazing job in everything. He did an amazing job. I mean, he had a limited budget, and he put so much work. By profession, he's an engineer. Okay, he's an engineer in Dubai. So that's his full-time job. So he loves film, and he has a film company, and he's put out some other things. So he did a whole bunch of work. Together, we worked on this project for like a year and a half. Eventually, I went to UK for about a week to be on set, and that was my experience with that.
Okay, so that you kind of answered the next question. How did the project end up being in UK? You say because of the 70s, but any other reason out of that?
The original story took place in the 70s, and also the culture of the 70s, is what interests me. So the 70s was important. And as far as when I went to the UK and also just seeing, the film itself, he did an amazing job. It's really hard, on a limited budget to make a film look like the 70s. So what we did was, he's right, like the buildings look old and they could easily pass the 70s. So he got a lot of locations. There's a library, there's all kinds of these locations, and he did an amazing job because the structures look old. We put an old telephone, and we found a phone booth, that looks like it's a real old phone booth, like these are hard things to find in like Dubai, America, America. So and then we put some old posters on the wall, and he got an old car or two, and he really made it work, and being there. Well, okay, we'll get to that later, I guess. But it was a really amazing experience to see this, and I learned a lot about the film business doing this. So that was also an interesting experience.
Great. So what surprises you most about the filmmaking process?
Okay, so I would say I was still thinking like a big budget film. I was thinking every scene has got to be take your time, do it like 10 times in a row, stop, retake. But because the budget is limited, it's done in a really fast pace. Like they have to do maybe several scenes in one day, several different locations. There's not permits for every location. So everything has to be done quickly, really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're watching that, when you're the writer, you don't want them doing your scene quickly, you want them to take the time. So I was a little shocked at that, but we're really lucky because we got some great actors. And the guy who was the lead role did an amazing job. He was just fantastic. I mean, perfect for this role. And we had a female. There's a female who's like the love interest in the movie. She has a significant scene, and she was also fantastic. So we really got lucky in a lot of ways that like it worked out, and I was surprised about how quickly things are done and how there's a lot of improvising. Like, okay, who has some black gloves? Okay, bring them over here. Like just things like that. Because I did acting in China. Like I did commercials and stuff. Any foreigner
Okay.
can any foreigner can do it. Like it wasn't that I was special enough. I was just a foreigner. They just need a foreign face. But those productions were pretty like decent budget productions, and it was one commercial for the whole day. So they would do things like really organized and with the time and everything. So this was very different because we have a 70s piece. We have lots of locations, lots of actors, lots of props, and it all's got to be done real quickly. So that was a shock to me to see how that's done. But it was really cool, a learning experience, and also cool to see how he put it all together because he did such an amazing job with so many tasks.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine jumping from place to place and changing best artists too to make it the scenes and all that. Yeah, the writing is solitary, filmmaking is collaborative. How hard was that to let others touch your vision?
Well, I'll tell you, like most of my connection on this was with a Sif, who's the director, Sif Pervez, and with him it was challenging because he is really opinionated and strong-minded. Like he has a way of doing things, and he's the boss. So I am also very strong about what I want this film to be, and it took us like a long time to like learn how to like work together smoothly. Like it was a little bit like rough around the edges for a while. I said, no, we got to do this. He said, no, we can't do that. Yes, we got to do this. So it was challenging because he has his vision, I have my vision, and also he might not understand aspects of the story. I might not understand aspects of the film business. So that was challenging. And the only other thing was there was some people along the way who he would hire, and they would start to get an ego or something, like, and they would start to think they're the boss. And this one guy, he comes on, he's good, because Asif was working in Dubai, he had to have this guy do the job in UK temporarily, and he was in charge of one aspect of the film. So he comes along, and he's the big boss suddenly, and he's saying, I don't want this Chris guy involved in this. And he also says, we're not going to have any SA, the types of assault. One of the types of assault this guy would do in the film. He was a killer, but he was also do, SA. He would do these type of to women. He would do these bad things. So
Okay.
so I told the director Sif. I said that's impossible because it's a story about a guy who does this. We don't have to show these things. We don't have to show that, but that can't be eliminated from the story. That's ridiculous. That's like a story about an astronaut who doesn't go to space. So like.
Yeah.
So there were some guys who step in and we have to get rid of these guys, because they're interfering with the process. If they help out and they're humble and they're good people, they stay aboard. But if they're going to come on with this giant ego and they're going to be the boss and they're going to do this and that, like, Asif knows, that's not going to work because me and him, we were like working partner on this. I wasn't just a writer. I was also, we're talking every week and we're thinking of things, and I'm helping him out with some ideas, and he's asking me my advice on how we can do things and stuff. It was like a cooperation.
Great. Were there were moments where the film becomes something different than what you were imagining?
Yeah, in a big way, in a really big way, and that's because I didn't have an understanding really of how the budget works and how the film works. Like again, like if someone was to see this indie feature film and one day say we're going to make a remake and we're going to use, I don't know how much, but a couple $1,000,000 or millions of dollars, there's a lot of scenes and stuff that we had to just change. But again, the director, with the resources he had, he did a fantastic job. Like no one could have done it better, I don't think. So there was a lot of scenes and stuff that had to be changed, a whole bunch. And that was just an amazing learning experience, really. I feel like I learned so much from this experience.
Okay. How did you decide when to fight for your vision and when to adapt?
Okay, so I know a couple stories of people who were really talented, but they're hard to get along with, and they ruined opportunities because they didn't want to adapt. I've heard so many stories like that. And even before I met Asif, I heard stories like that. And it's usually, in my opinion, it's a very amateur mentality to think like, oh, this is my book and it's going to be like this. And there's so many funny stories I've heard. One guy had like this, it was a low budget film or something. And he had a fancy old car, like an old sports car, and he wanted it to blow up and stuff. And no, we can't do that. We can't blow up an old, like Porsche 70s. So I knew already that I'd have to adapt to make it work. And that's the only way. And I think that's one of the reasons I got to this stage, because I'm willing to adapt and I'm willing to be humble and I'm willing to, be patient. I think that's part of it. I think if I had a bad attitude, I don't think this director, Asif, he would have wanted to work with me. He probably would have been like, forget this guy, because he had people like that, in this process, editors and different people, who just had really bad attitudes and stuff. And he had to look for other people to do it, And the same thing as a writer. Like if you have a good story, but you don't want to change anything and you don't want to adapt to the budget and you don't want to, it's not going to work,
I agree totally. Personally, definitely impacts your work or your vision. So if you don't want to adapt or let go, sometimes it can drag you down for sure. So next question will be, what was the loneliest moment on this journey?
I would say, I have a wife and she's very supportive. So I always had her. She's not an artist, that's the thing. She's not an artist and she has to try to understand what it means to be an artist, because a lot of this stuff doesn't make anybody money, it's not making us money, So we're doing all this effort, and a lot of people would be like, what are you doing that for? And it's a labor of love, and who knows, maybe it'll open some opportunities that do make money, but it's definitely not done for right now at this stage, at this independent, type of stage. It's not about money, So, she's Chinese and she's pretty practical. So, I think in my mind, I'm thinking about this all the time, and it's a passion. It's just a drive. I have to do it, and, just in my head, I'm alone because but luckily, I worked with Asif and, he's on the same page as me. He's as passionate about this as I am. So, we're also working together. So I'm not totally alone on this project. But before that, it is lonely because, you have a vision, you have a dream, you have a belief in yourself, but nobody else does. So you have to go against all that and believe in yourself,
Yeah, that's a key factor. And it says the most rewarding success in life is the things that we do without a paycheck, or say for free. You're not really doing it for free. You're doing it for your vision. But as you say, at this moment, you don't get paid. Eventually, you might, and hopefully, this is a great hit for you. And I wish you the best for that. But yeah, those moments, later your wife is with you in that boat, and they're paddling together. Because at the beginning, it's just for the love of yourself and your encourage yourself and believing in yourself. So that's a great one. So one moment made you think this actually happening?
So at first, my first goal when writing this was to get a book deal. And that was also very challenging. And it's just that never quit attitude, that's my way of thinking of it. Just believe in yourself and don't stop. Just keep going. Tell yourself it's going to happen. Go through the hard parts and believe in yourself. So eventually I got a little book deal, and a lot of bad things came out of that, but there's also some good things too. Like I got a really good book cover, and I used that cover to help find my film distribution and stuff and production. So that was something that came out of that. So that was my first thing, was trying to get a book publisher. They put it out, and eventually we split ways. We parted ways, and I self-published it after that. So that was the first step. Second step was, okay, now I got to write a screenplay, and then I did that. And then it was, okay, now I got to try to find someone to make a movie. And, everybody, I think every single writer in this planet who has a book out is dreaming that their book's going to be a movie, right? Everybody has the same problem. Like, how does that happen? There's no answer. Nobody has an answer for that, So it's, you have to have some connections, or you have to have someone with money or power or something. So there was really no clear path, It was just try, believe in yourself, try, believe in yourself. And, when I met Asif, I didn't really expect it was going to be like an indie feature film. It kind of progressed into that. Now it's really amazing because there is probably 40 people involved in this project between the actors and the production and the team and stuff. And, all my projects in the past have been me doing it by myself, or I had some articles published, which was cool. that was me and the editor. And, like they would give you a little bit of money and then you'd see your article in a magazine. That was cool. And then in China, I did a little acting that I would get paid for, but it was such like small things, like nobody even knows, but it was fun and it was cool. So this is the first time where there's like a team of people working on a project that I wrote. And that, to me, that's amazing. And that means, okay, I succeeded because we got actors, we got sound people, we got light people, we got directors and DOPs, director of photography and all these things going on for a story that I wrote. So at this point I could say, yeah, this is a reality, even if it's not, like some giant blockbuster film, if it's an indie film, it's still a huge accomplishment as a writer,
For sure, it's amazing, my friend. Any, like you said, any writer will dream is to become a movie, independently if it's a success or not. It will be just grateful to have a movie. So how you feel the story come alive on a screen the first time?
I just wanted to go back to that last question real quick because I have a better answer. I bought this sweatshirt right here. I bought this like, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago or something. And I said, I'm not going to wear this until I'm sitting outside the movie being filmed. Like I said, I'm going to be sitting there while the film is happening, while it's being filmed in this t-shirt. So I bought it for like a year. I didn't wear it. I said, I'm going to wear it when that happens. So then, and this is before I met Asif, before I knew him. So I bought the sweatshirt. I said, I'm not wearing this until the movie's being filmed and I'm sitting there watching that happen. This is what I told myself. So it sat in my closet for like a year or something like that. So then eventually I knew this was going to happen and I knew I was going to go to UK and be there for a week and see some scenes. So I wanted to be there during my favorite scene, which is between this girl Mouse, is one of the characters, and Jay. So I arranged it so that I would be there on that time period, So I waited till that day. And I have a picture on my Facebook page. I'm with some of the guys from the crew. We're in the library. There's a library scene. I'm wearing this sweatshirt. So I was actually there. I made it happen. I was in UK and they're filming the film with the scene with Mouse and I'm wearing the sweatshirt. So that was when I knew, I guess, that, yeah, this happened.
Thank you for wearing the sweater here and bringing the movie into the podcast as well. After living abroad and filming internationally, you are now back in the US. How has that transition been?
Coming back from China was huge. That was a huge thing. It was so unbelievable because we went from living in a real simple village to a really fast-paced lifestyle. We're near DC now. Like we're in Virginia, close to DC. And the life here is super fast-paced and super materialistic and everybody's just like, it's all about making money and it was crazy. It was really tough and really challenging. The going to UK, that was just a really fun experience, but the airline I went to was horrible. They lost my luggage. Finally, I got it back. The stewardess was like this big bully type. She was like really mean. And the airline was horrible, but the trip was amazing. That was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. I mean, I spent 13 years in China doing really cool stuff. So that UK trip in 1 week was almost equal to my experience in China. So that was a really amazing experience.
So how has that journey changed how you see yourself?
I'll tell you the truth. I mean, again, people who let's say know me on Facebook or know me from back in the days, they might look at me and say wow, this guy lives a really cool life. But again, they're not seeing all the hard stuff and all the struggle that I've been through, which is extreme. It's really, really extreme. I just don't show that. I don't show that and I don't talk about it, all this stuff is, I feel lucky, because I've dedicated my whole life to this. I've sacrificed, having a big house and having a fancy car and living, like how most people live. I've sacrificed this all so that I can follow my dream as an artist, So the fact that I've had some success, it's been a dream to go to Asia and I got to do that. I always want to try acting. I got to do that. I wanted to write. I got to do that. So I feel fortunate about that, but I still don't kind of feel like I reached my potential. I would say I reached about 7% of my potential. I still feel like I have a whole bunch of potential that never got reached. So it's all this nonstop, desiring to make these things happen. I think every single artist goes through that same thing. They all have this nonstop fire. But I don't want to die following a dream. I want to give it a rest at one point. So I made a deal. If this movie thing happens, I'm going to give it a rest. Now, doesn't mean I'm not going to stop writing and trying, but I don't want it to be like this never ending fire that burns and I can't give it up. And then I want to come to some peace, So I feel satisfied that I got to do those things. And that's what's valuable to me. And hopefully, it inspires people. Like it's not just a selfish journey.
Great, yes. So do you feel the person who started the project is the same person who finished it?
I think it's given me some confidence. I think, yeah, I've done a lot of things that I think, can make a person feel really successful and confident. But I think my childhood was like I didn't have a family structure that would make me feel secure in this world. So, like, even though I do a lot of things that would build a lot of confidence, I still feel not so confident in life. And I
Hmm.
think that there's another project that helps me build my confidence because, again, this is a tremendous endeavor and a really hard goal to reach. So I feel like, it's built my confidence in that way.
So now this is related to my trade, landscapers. Landscaper builders and trades people, I create something tangible. What parallel do you see between filmmaking and craftsmanship?
I think it's like this. Let's say you're a musician or a writer or something or like let's say in this case the film. The film is the concrete part of this whole procedure, and that's and what so that film itself, if it's available on this platform or that platform, I don't know yet what it's going to be. But like that film is the end result, and I think, in my opinion, what all this is about is this is how I look at this whole art thing. Like when your life is really in shambles, you might go to a song, that you love. Like
Hmm.
if your heart's broken or something. So like in that moment where like, you're searching for something really deep, you go to a song or something. And that will, like make you take you back from the edge of, like wanting to die or something. So in that way, I think the art is important because it touches like the soul or the psyche or your heart or something. And that's where it's important. And I think that's a big problem with the whole art now. Like the way they make movies now, in my opinion, is they don't care about it. Like they just kind of want the money and they put together some fast product and they don't put the time and effort and the whole feel of a movie like they did back in the 80s or something, like the Karate Kid or something or a
Yeah.
Stand By Me or something like this. Like they put their heart and soul into these movies, and like people need that. I think like people need that in their life. And if they don't have it, they kind of like lose hope. I feel like, they kind of lose hope because these are the things like if you look in the 70s, like Rocky, the movie Rocky, like everybody, in this country is like, yeah, Rocky, like it's like something like that,
Yeah.
you know? And like if you don't have movies like that, then people kind of lose hope. So I think it's important. But I think it becomes not important when they start putting out this garbage, like they just care about the money and they don't care about the art. That's when it's garbage and that's when it feels useless. And I think like right now, someone can look at the art and be like, it's useless, like because it's just about those people making money. It's not about like uplifting people's spirits. So I think the actual film is the physical aspect, and the value of it is it uplifts people's spirits in some way or takes away their stress temporarily. And I think that's the value of it.
That's right, yeah. And just to add up the parallel side that I see from my side is you just mentioned it, doing things with passion as much as 100% as possible, done it right, not throwing shit out there like you're saying. That's the parallel world in the landscape. Here too, there's people who same thing goes for the money and they don't care how the things look. They just go for the money. And there's people like me that they really put attention on the detail, on how the plant grows. So I think that will be the parallel world. Just to add up on your answer, that was a great answer. Um, so what does the film? What does the finished long difficult project teach you about the practice? I mean the patient.
Um, well, this whole process takes a extreme amount of patience. I think it takes as much patience as almost anything that you can imagine. Like, I mean, like, because there's so much uncertainty about what's going to happen, and you have to continuously believe in yourself and continuously push forward. Like, whereas if let's say you wanted to be a psychologist or something, and it's going to be super hard, it's going to take a long time, it's going to take money, but you have some method to do it. With making a movie, there's no method. It's like you just have to believe in yourself, and then somehow, by some miracle, figure out a way to make it happen. So all that time, you're going through this, like I don't know how to explain it, but just going through this struggle where you're trying to make this happen and you don't even know how you're going to do it. So you have to have, a lot of patience, in my opinion. to make something like this happen. And that's the difference between someone who fails and someone who doesn't fail, you know?
So what would you tell someone that's sitting on an idea but is being afraid to commit?
You know, that's a good question. My first thing would be, do you have talent? There's a lot of people, I see a lot of people who don't have talent and they still want to be like some kind of writer or actor or singer. And it's all about themselves, you know, how they can make themselves seem like they're special. And I don't think that's a good reason for creating art. You know, it has to be you have something to offer, you know, and that's the whole point. So if you're gonna, you know, if you have talent as a singer, then go for it. But I wouldn't say quit your day job. You know, maybe keep your day job, you know, and don't like, you know, give up on going to school or whatever it is you want to do. Like pursue something else, you know, because there's no guarantee. And even if you do succeed, like I'm a little bit successful in some ways, but I still have a job, you know, and like so, I would say don't give up your day job, don't give up going to school, and still give it 100%. If you have the talent, like if you believe you 100% you have the talent. If your goal is like to make yourself look cool, I would say just quit. Just go do something else because that's like the world doesn't need that anymore. You know, they need some music or art or films that's going to uplift their spirit. You know,
For sure, yeah, the world needs more art, more love, more music, something that can bring us all together, no against each other, because it looks like the world is going against each other every day. You see one lesson that you learn or taught over there in China that still guide you.
yeah, that's interesting. You know, there's so many values in Chinese culture that America could really, really use, but it's hard because you know I talked to my wife this the other day. You know, in China, everybody's Chinese. They all have a similar belief. They all have a similar government. They all have a similar lifestyle. So it's a little easier for them to all get along and understand each other. Where in America, like you got people from all over and they all have their own beliefs and stuff. And like it's challenging, you know, like to get these people to be all think this like in a similar way because there's so many different cultures and beliefs and government, you know, and politics and stuff, and they're all coming together. There's so many different ideas. It's challenging. But in China, like they have some really good values. Like I mean, they have good family values. They are less selfish, less spoiled. They you know, they respect elderly people. So and they're also patient. They're a lot more patient and tolerant. So I think that all those things are really valuable lessons. And I at my work and in my day-to-day situations, you know, like teaching students, I do some teaching. I try to pass that on or at least set an example, you know. I try to.
Martial arts, since you teach that, yeah, it's a big. They emphasize that passion and patience with people is where it's a big thing on martial arts. One misconception people have about creativity.
About the writing or the martial arts or the movie making or
No,
which
no.
one?
One misconception people has about creativity.
Okay, misconception about creativity. Well, I think it's like we said before, like how people see the good side, but they don't see the bad side, you know. And even like some of these, you know, maybe some of these celebrities we all see and we think like, oh man, they're so lucky and we got to struggle and stuff, you know. But we don't know what they've been through, you know. So
Mhm.
and I just think that, you know, even if you have a great life, if you're rich and all these things, you know, you're still gonna like grow old and die and have disease and you know, there's gonna be problems and stuff. So like everybody's struggling and you know, like again, even if you get a little like if I was to let's say I was to sell a screenplay and it would become like a mini series on Netflix and all of a sudden everybody's like, oh wow, you know, you're so lucky. Like I've been writing since I was 9 years old. I've had so much failure you can't even imagine, you know? So like it's a misconception maybe that you think like it's some easy road or something or it's about being famous and rich, you know, it's a struggle like anything else, you know. And like
Correct. Yeah.
even if you don't succeed, you know, like at least you tried, you know.
So one thing that you will do different next time, I would say.
Would like to make some money on my next project. I would like to make some money on my next project. And not for selfish reasons, not for selfish reasons, but it's just another goal of mine. I just want to maybe my childhood damaged me psychologically and some of these things are like to make up for like I didn't really have a mother in most of my lifetime. So like I feel like insecure in some ways and stuff. So like I think, you know, these little goals that I set are a way of like of healing me, you know. So I think that if I made some money selling something and I could sit back and feel proud about myself and then that would like, you know, mentally somehow heal me. So I think that that's just a goal I have is to make some money off one of these projects. And then I could be like, yeah, I'm a professional, you know, I'm not just a guy who's doing this for fun. that would make me feel satisfied. So I would say if I want to do one thing differently, would be to sell a script or to make money off the film. I'm not sure if this one's going to or not, but that would be a goal of mine.
A great goal, yeah. I'm pretty sure I will say we always start with the first one, my friend, and then after that, then rewards coming in. So, what do you hope people feel after watching the film?
That's a good question, and it's hard to say because, again, this story is based on a horrible guy. I mean, I'll just tell you what this guy did in real life, the real life guy. He started off his career as a criminal doing 100 burglaries, and he never got caught. Then he became a rapist, and he did 50 rapes and never got caught. And then he became a killer, a serial killer, and he did 13 murders and never got caught. And all this went on for like over 40 years without any clue who this guy was. Finally, they figured out he was through the DNA. So he's not a good person, and it's not a good story. But I tried to tell this in a way where it's hard to explain, but I try to make it in a way where maybe he's not to blame, or maybe he's got some issues, or we don't know why he did it. It's whatever you. It's really complicated, in my opinion, the writing process and what goes into one of these stories. It's a little bit sublime or secret, or you can like look at abstract, you can get what you want from it. So I think it depends on whatever the person watches. If they laughed maybe because the scene was silly, or if they thought it was cool, some scene, or they thought it was tragic, or they thought it was disturbing, or whatever it is that somehow drums up some emotions, that would be good.
Yeah, it's all about perspective. Yeah, each individual will see the scene differently. But yeah, I'm pretty sure you will get a reward. What is next for your creative work?
I have another screenplay. It's called Rachel, and it's also inspired by a true story. I think that's my niche. Is these inspire? It's like a fictional story inspired by. It also takes place in the '70s, and it deals with a rock star. And this story is a drama, and it involves actually like a transsexual woman who dated a rock star. It's based on a true story. They dated a rock star in the '70s, and the reason I chose this story was two reasons. One, I wanted to write a drama, where the first one's like a dark psychological thriller. I wanted to try writing a drama. And when I hear a story and it sounds really interesting, I said, "Ooh, that would be a good idea for a story." So when I heard that story, it sparked interest in my mind. I don't really have any connection to that whole thing, but it sparked interest in my mind. And it's a sad, tragic story, and that's what I wanted. I looked into the story. The individual whose name is Rachel in real life, it's inspired by Rachel Humphrey. She was a transsexual woman who dated Lou Reed, who was like some kind of rock star in the '70s. So it's a tragic story. It ends in tragedy. It tells a tale of whatever. That's my next story. And again, like I think there's a market for this type of thing, and I think that.
Sure.
I would really like for it to become a film, and I'd really like it to become a film and make me a little bit of money, just so I could sit back and say, yeah, I did it.
Yeah, that's the goal. Hopefully you achieve that, my friend. I wish you the best of luck. The final question, what does it means to you to see an idea go from your mind to the real world?
I'll tell you, like, when I was sitting, like when I was in UK watching them film, it was surreal. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe like this is actually happening. It's amazing, because this is like, we have a trailer out now, and the film it's almost done. It's about 97% wrapped up. It'll be done in about a week or two. And then the first screening will be on the 16th in January in UK. I won't be able to be there, unfortunately, but it'll be on the 16th in UK. They have a theater. They're going to put it out in this little theater, and that's going to be a screening mostly for the crew and stuff and the members. But that's going to be the very first screening. And it's just unbelievable, like to see these characters that I wrote down when I was living in Chanel Village, and like in a novel, and to see an actor playing these roles on film is unbelievable. Even though it's not a huge, blockbuster Hollywood film, but it's a film, and it's a good one, and it's amazing. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, thank you. It was all great information about your movie, your novel. And where can you share all that? Where we can find your book, your novel, and then also your movie, if you ever come. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna be on the big box, or how they can get a piece of the copy if someone interested in getting it, or you don't have those, whatever you have data to share about your book and your movie.
The book is available on Amazon. You could get it again. It's an audiobook if you like audiobooks, and it's also Kindle, and you could buy a hard copy. The hard copy looks like this. I'll just show you real quick. This is the cover. So the movie is right now. Again, the first step is to finish the movie, which is like a week away. Then they're going to do their first screening, and then it's going to go through a whole process, which is pretty much up to the director. But like it enters film festivals and stuff, and eventually find a distributor. But it'll be available in America and UK and such. So when that information is available, we're gonna publicize as much as humanly possible. It should be like available to watch like publicly a couple months later, I'm guessing, but again, it's a little tricky to say right now.
No worries. I don't want to compromise anything.
If you want to see the trailer, if you want to see like if it's something you might want to watch, the trailer is available on YouTube. You can just say "Mommy, I Don't Want to" trailer, and it's also on the IMDb page. "Mommy, I Don't Want to" by Chris Freeman. So you can take a look at that. It's inspired by the Golden State Killer case. It's a fictional film, fictional novel. If you like 70s culture, if you like psychological thrillers, if you like true crime, you're most likely gonna really like this book and the movie.
I'm really gonna take a look into your book, into your audiobook. Thank you. And then if the movie ever comes out, well, it's gonna come out. But what I'm saying, when it's ready, if you wanted to jump back into the podcast and discuss about the movie, and I will be more than happy and welcome to have you back again.
Awesome. Thank you, Apolo. I appreciate that. It's a great questions. I love it. Awesome.
Thank you. So anything that you want to share about your social media, how they contact you outside there, if you want to share, if not, I know some people take personal social media, but so they can get a hold or discuss the book with you, if you're willing to share.
On Facebook, you could just look up my name, Chris Freeman. Again, if you forget that and you want to see like the name, you can just look up the novel "Mommy, I Don't Want to" by Chris Freeman. I'm available. I'm here on Facebook all the time. I got a YouTube channel. You can look up Chris Freeman Kung Fu. You'll see all my Chinese martial arts stuff. So that's another side of my personality. Again, like I would like to say that this is all this stuff that I'm talking about is not about myself. It's hopefully like inspire other people in some way. Like in some way, I hope that my story inspires someone in any kind of way, even a little bit, to do something they want to do. Like it's not about I'm a cool guy and I do cool things. It's about helping other people. And I hope that somehow through my martial arts and my writing, I can inspire people or help them in some way.
Thank you. And that's the reason this podcast came to life too, to bring people awareness there. Everybody can be whatever they dream to be. Just believe in yourself. Thank you.
Okay, Apolo.
Thank you for your time. And then we're gonna stop recording.